Okay, so we are going to create an asteroid and a ship for this project. And for this tutorial, I'm just going to go over the creation of the asteroid in Lightwave Modeler, and then we're going to move textures and images to it. So we're going to do some subdividing or subpatching, which are basically the same thing. So you're going to create a box. Make sure there is no geometry in it, so it's not divided up. It might be if you were making your treehouse recently. And to get the geometry out of there, you just do the left arrow and the down arrow, so there should be no divisions. If you come here in the textured wire view, you can see if there's any geometry in there. And the subdivide tool is in multiply, subdivide all the way down here, and you get a little pop-up. So the faceted cuts it in half, and if you did subdivide faceted again, it would cut all of those polygons that you just made in half. This is a really good thing to work with if you forgot to add geometry when you were in the box primitive and then you realized you needed some more, but you were out of that box primitive. You can just do that subdivide option. Go back. Let's look at the next one. Smooth actually is just for rounded objects, so it's not going to do much with this. And then what we're going to work with is the metaform. So this smooths it dramatically, and let me just do it. You can see it makes organic shapes from simple geometric structures. So it's more organic than starting with, say, a ball primitive, and you can really do a lot with this. So there's also an automatic subpatch tool, which is the tab key, and it's faster than the subdivision tool. It doesn't add more polygons or divide, it just pinches the corners in. So I'm gonna go back to the box and I'm just hitting the tab key on my keyboard, and you can see what that does. It's pretty cool. So you want to be careful with this because if you have a really complex object or a circular object, it can really slow down your computer and it can break the form. So it works best with 3 or 4-sided polygons. Like if I come into this disk tool and try to press the tab key, it's not even going to let me do it because only faces with 3 or 4 vertices can be converted into subpatches. So that's just something to be aware of. Okay, so we have our subpatched model here, and we're going to create an asteroid, and we have a lot of options to change the shape of this. So we can come to modify and drag, which is right here under move, and see these little dots here? You can pull them all out. So you're going to spend a lot of time on your asteroid getting it to a cool looking shape. And use the perspective and really get it looking how you would want an asteroid to look. We can modify it even more with the edge selection. So down here you can press the space bar to move through these. So get to the edge selection, you can select any edge or multiple edges, and you can use the move tool, which is T on the keyboard, and just drag that out. You can also rotate, which is Y on the keyboard, and you can see, let's see if you can see that better. You can rotate this any way you want. Just again, be careful with that to not let it fold in on itself, because that could create some issues with rendering. You can also add more geometry to this. So I'm going to spacebar, question mark to deselect, and I'm going to come into the polygon selection, which I can press the spacebar to get to, or you can click on it down here, and you can just select a polygon. I'm just going to select one. Okay, and then we can come to multiply up on the top and smooth shift right here, and see, you can pull that out. And then once you're in there, if you want to affect it even more, you can come to modify and stretch, which is H on the keyboard. And you can kind of pinch it in So you're going to take time to get your asteroid in a shape that you want it. You can also go back to move, which is T, and move it around, move it at an angle. So you want to add more geometry at this point rather than in the beginning. I'm going to hit question mark to get out of there, and I can smooth shift this to bring that up if I want, and you can really create a lot. Come back to modify and stretch, and you can really get it into a cool shape. So you're gonna select the whole thing by using the polygon selection, and I just press the space bar to get back into there, and out of the smooth shift tool and the right bracket key to select everything, then Q on the keyboard, and I'm gonna call it asteroid. And you can click smoothing here. You can change the color if you want. We're gonna add texture to it, so it doesn't really matter. But it's just good to name the surfaces as you start moving forward. It's a good thing to get in a habit of doing, even though for this one there will only be one surface. So we are going to save. We'll call it Asteroid 2 model. Save, and we're going to bring it into layout to add some texture. Okay, so let me just move this light out of the way because sometimes that drives me a little nuts. Okay, so you can get your camera set up if your camera isn't in a place that you like it. You can come through the camera view. Make sure you can really see your object. I'm actually going to zoom out and go to the side a little bit so you can have a better view of what I'll be doing. And then we're going to come to VPR. It's the Viewport Preview Renderer. So this is basically what your rendering will look like, what your render will look like. And it's also where we'll be able to see all the textures and images that we add. So we are going to add an image to the surface of this, and then we're going to add a texture. So we're going to go to the surface editor, and this pops up. And you'll see, since I named it asteroid from the drop down, that's the surface we have. So you click on that, and you can check smoothing here too. So if you forgot to check smoothing, you can just check it here. And you come up to this edit node graph, and whoa, this thing pops up, and it seems like a lot going on. You can do a lot with this and get really advanced, but we're just going to start with the basics, and you can see that it's actually really fun, and you can see how far you can take it just from these basic steps. So you can make it bigger, you can move all the stuff around, and so it's easier for you to see. I'm gonna leave it a little smaller so you can see what's happening to my asteroid. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is add image. So I'm gonna put some textures in the M drive. You can download your own on Canvas. There is the textures.com where you can download, I forget how many free textures per day, but it's a good idea to start building up a library of textures that you like. Okay, so we're gonna come to 2D textures, and we're gonna go to image, double click, so this pops up, and then we double click on this blank space here. And you're gonna come up here to image, load image, and then you're picking it from your computer, and I have a concrete one. You could also do a cool metal one for this. It's totally up to you. And I got this from textures.com, and it's free. Okay, so we are going to make sure, the one thing we really want to make sure to do is in the mapping here is make this spherical. So make sure you select that so it goes around the image. And then we can come out of here, and you can see in here how you can really do a lot, and there's a lot of options. Right now, just worry about the mapping spherical. We're going to come in, here's our image here that we just added, and we're going to do the image color to the BSDF color. And wow, automatically it's just right there. It's pretty awesome, and it already is adding a lot, but we also want to add texture to it. Okay, so to add some bumps and textures, 3D textures to it, we're going to come to the bottom here, Objects, Properties, and check Nodal Displacement. and then you double click on nodal displacement, and this pops up. So you want to come into the 3D textures here, and I think crackle and crumple are the best for this. So I'm going to double click on crumple, and I'm going to have the crumple color go into the displacement input, and you can see that's already affecting the surface. Get this out of the way. What I also like to do is come back into the edit node graph, and I'm going to pick crumple from here and put the bump into the bump. And that, I think that's looking, we just had a couple steps here and it's already looking more and more like an asteroid. Now, just like the image, you can double click on here and you can affect the bump altitude, so you can lower it. You can also affect the scale, so I can do 0.5, tab 0.5, tab 0.5, make it smaller. You can change, this is the background color, you can change the background color and the foreground color. You can make it white. You know, really up to you. You can do a lot with this, and I really want you to experiment and to try all these different options and to really get lost and nerd out in this thing, because it's really cool. So for both your ship and your asteroid, they're going to have a 2D image that you add to it. Here, this image from the 2D textures, and then a 3D sort of bumpy kind of crackly surface, something that's a 3D texture in there. And don't forget this nodal displacement step. All right, so have fun. In class, we'll work on the ship together. Okay, so we're going to take a look at making really quick stars. So you have your ship and your asteroid, and you've worked long and hard on making your textures look great in there. And we come to layout, so bring your ship and asteroid into layout. We're in current camera and we're in VPR here, so make sure you're in VPR. So we have this backdrop, so it's items, backdrop. And I'm gonna uncheck this gradient backdrop here, so it's just black. And then we want to add an environment, textured environment, and you double click on this to get the options. So then we click on here and I get this pop-up coming up. So we want to have the layer type be procedural texture, and then the procedural type to come up to crust. And you can see there's some dots in the background, but they're big. We're going to make them smaller here with the scale. So we're going to make them, you know, you can try 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. Still, those are pretty big. So I'm going to go all the way to 0.01, 0.01, 0.01. Now we can see they're starting to look a little bit more like stars, but they don't look so great. So what we're going to affect next is the coverage. And try 0.05, and there. That is a super easy way to make some stars, make it look good. You can adjust yours more, obviously adjust your camera, get your lighting set up, but have the stars backdrop, and I think that will look great.